Hello and welcome back to the Developer Show. Last month, not last week, you voted on a project that you'd like us to build. So this week we will be building on that project and showcasing some highlights from the GitLab 18.4 release, including our knowledge graph, custom models, and the AI catalog.
And we're also going to try something new this episode. So we're going to bring in some experts so that way we can do a Q&A that's going to go over everything in 18.4. And I urge everyone to ask questions on the LinkedIn Live so that way we can get our experts to address these. And then we're also going to share some community answers that you've submitted, and we'll do that at the end of the show.
Yeah, if you're watching on LinkedIn, YouTube, or X, feel free to drop a comment or reply to the live stream with your question. Those will pop up on the screen, and then we'll get those to our guests. So let's get started first with introducing our guests here today for the 18.4 Q&A. We'll have them tell us their name, their role at GitLab, and the sort of things that they work on at GitLab. Welcome, everyone. I will pass it to Shekhar first. Shekhar, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, I am Shekhar. I am a distinguished engineer at GitLab. I work across different AI features, work mostly on architecture and design. And I'm so glad to be here today talking to you all.
Nice. Thanks, Shekhar.
Ben?
And I'll pass it on to Sarah.
Or Sarah. Thanks, guys. I'm Sarah Waldner. I'm Senior Director of Product Management for AI at GitLab. I'll hand it off to Ben.
Hey everyone, my name is Ben. I'm the Senior Product Manager for the Do Agent platform, covering most of the user-facing Do Agent platform stuff. So excited to chat with you all today about what we have cooking.
And then we have
Hi,
Sean.
So I'm left. So I'm Staff Technical Program Manager for Do Agent platform. So I kind of work across the teams internally to make sure that we land all the features timely.
Wonderful. I'm going to start sharing my screen. We'll start at this What's New GitLab 18.4 page and sort of scroll through it. And as we scroll through it, I would love for all of you to sort of chime in. I know that we have a few questions prepared. Let me just fix my window. Where did it go? There it is. Never do this live. Here we go. All right. So we'll start with the AI catalog. That's first on this released list of what's new. And Ben, I believe you are going to tell us about the AI catalog.
Yeah, I can chat about the AI catalog for sure. So the AI catalog is going to be the place where basically we list out all of your available MCP servers, agents, custom flows, third-party agents like Claude Code or OpenAI Codex available, like based agents. So it'll have the ability to publish that to an organization, to your team, et cetera, and then you can consume sort of official enterprise agents maybe that your company's provided from, say, your security team, for example.
Yeah, and that's super cool because like people will build things and then we'll publish them to the AI catalog. And I see it as, and you can add to this, like people are solving problems, real problems, our customers, and we'll publish those things that they've built, and then other people can sort of benefit from not reinventing those.
Yeah, exactly. What you'll find, I think, as you get more into the agentic stuff is it takes quite a bit of work to get an agent into production that you're comfortable running at scale, multiple copies of. And so lots of work will go into that for each individual customer doing their own things to make them work for their business and their internal tools and their internal processes and whatnot. And so there's going to be probably a high level of rigor around the agents that are deployed very widely. But then we also want people to be able to share amongst their teams for agents that are less, the requirements may be less rigorous. So you'll be able to kind of tier out at all those various levels of, enterprise approved, fully sanctioned, anyone can use it across the whole company versus this is just for your team to use, for example.
Very cool.
And I'm sure people have made some really fun agents as well. I'm sure there's some funny ones out there and testing.
Oh yeah, we have plenty of funny ones we've been testing with for sure, as well as like real ones that have good use cases.
Yeah, so we had someone who created a pirate agent who used to do security reviews in a pirate voice. So that was enjoable.
I really love that. That's really creative.
Are the merge requests done?
That took me a second, Fern. That's awesome. Are there some sort of there's a bullet point here about creating custom agents? Like, are there some interesting custom agents other than our pirate that we've seen that are interesting that surprised you maybe?
I don't know if I've seen any like super surprising ones. I think what has been nice to see is that all the different GitLab tools that we've made available work really well within the platform. And so even just fundamental things that can give an individual developer or a team on a project a lot of leverage, like helping you build a good plan for a particular project or a particular, issue you might be wanting to add some detail to. And having that work very nicely, like, even creating a custom agent you can chat with to in the future to like do project planning and creating issues, or one or more issues or epics from it is a good example of, like, I think just sort of fundamental stuff, but it really does make your life easier when you have it working well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. One of the other things that we've been talking about, and as an organization, is like integrating with the tools that people are using already and love. And is that something that will be a part of this as well?
Yeah, and one of our big pushes in the last few months has been to really drive to make GitLab a more open platform when it comes to AI. And so we have in 18.3 we released our integration for Claude Code running in the CLI and in CI agents, or in the CI runners on the platform. That will migrate to managed keys on GitLab.com eventually, and for self-managed as well and dedicated. So you won't need to bring your own API key anymore, and your DApp account will provide you with that. And we're going to continue to do that with other, for example, CLI agents as well. So they'll be able to run on the platform. And MCP servers as well are supported. You can bring your own MCP servers, things like that. So the idea is that you can bring the best of breed tools. We'll provide some. You'll be able to bring what we don't have, direct relationships with, or open source projects, things like that. So yeah, I mean, the idea is that we are a foundation for you to build your ideal developer and enterprise AI experience on top of.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw the demo for the CLI agents, where it was like, we built one where, you can ask one of them to review the code, and then the other one to write you a README, and then the other one to do another task. And so I don't know if, as engineer Shikar or Jason, you have like a specific example of some of those. I thought those were cool workflows.
Yeah, we got a bunch of them. So for the CLI agents, you can essentially ask, Amazon Q or Claude or Codex to sort of do things, and we are expanding on the capabilities. But right now, so the cool things are just easy ones, like, hey, give me an implementation plan for this issue. So I've created this issue. Tell me how this can be actually done, and then the engineer can take over and sort of actually implement it. But it's great to have the agent do an initial pass, figure out what the complexity of this is, figure out all the little files that need to be touched for this, and where any sort of security vulnerabilities that could happen as a result of making the change, etc. So I think there's some really interesting use cases there for CLI agents. And the great thing about these is that you can run these in parallel, right? So you can say, add Claude, do this for me, and add Codex, do this for me. And so that's the really interesting use cases where you can run a bunch of parallel agents to actually do tasks in parallel.
Yeah, and actually, it seems like our audience has come up with questions, so I think this is a really good one. Are you seeing interesting workflows emerge where developers are orchestrating multiple AI tools through GitLab's platform? So, kind of what we were talking about, that you use one agent for one thing, then another agent for another thing. How have you seen? I know this is still early on, and I know we've just came up with the catalog, but with our own developers and with our audience, how have you seen these things work? Like we talked about, one to create a README, one to create unit tests. How do they interact together, and how do you see that happening?
That's a really interesting question. We've seen like two patterns of agents, I would say, and Ben, you can elaborate on this. But basically, one is that you parallelize the work, and these are really great for like paper cuts, where you've got that one issue that's there which you want to get fixed, and you never get to that because you've got this other set of things you need to get to. And it's great, using the CLI agents or using the agents on the platform to be able to just go ahead and just say, hey, I've got this issue where this box, this combo box on the screen says select, and I want to say select product or something like that, and you can just go and let it do the thing, or say, hey, the translation is not working. So it's great for those little small issues, and you can fire those in parallel. But we've also seen, interestingly, workflows where people want to chain agents together. So they want to get the best of all worlds, and they say, hey, agent one, do this review from this perspective, and agent two, do this from this perspective, and you can chain those agents together. together, and that really leads to an interesting review, right? So you could say, hey, agent 1, write the implementation plan, and agent 2, do find the issues with the implementation plan, and or write tests for the implementation plan. And so the whole idea of chaining and orchestrating agents is new, but I think it can lead to some really interesting use cases.
Perfect. So in parallel and chains, we're seeing a lot of different cases around that. That's super interesting. I like that.
Awesome.
feel like-
Thank you so
yeah.
much, Colleen, for the question. We love seeing questions from our audience. If you're watching this on LinkedIn, X, or Twitter, on LinkedIn, X, or YouTube, please drop your questions into the chat and we'll continue to pull them in. So next up on the what's new for 18.4 was the knowledge graph. I know that is currently in beta. I thought that we would take some time to chat through a little bit of what that is and sort of how exciting it is. We sort of gave a preview of it at Epic Event Singapore last week, and the audience was really excited. We got to show like, here's how you would do a thing with an agent that only has grep tools, and then here's how that is improved, like finding the root cause of an incident with the knowledge graph. And it was really cool to see the difference in like a somewhat vague answer and suggestion to here's the specific files that you should be looking at. Ben, should we talk about the knowledge graph for a bit?
Yeah, I can chat about it a bit. I'll definitely punt it to Shekhar to talk more of the technical details, but I think knowledge graphs are really interesting because they, particularly for the way that agents do agentic search natively, it really gives them kind of a boost, because typically what you'll see in like most of the CLI agents is a good example that work particularly well for coding tasks. They kind of do like grep and ls and things like that, and they're operating on the file system, which is really nice. They can do a lot of stuff by themselves, and they don't need necessarily to have relevance or ranking tuning and that type of stuff that you typically think of being really important when you're doing search. But the knowledge graph really helps shortcut a lot of that and add some of that value to it by having these pre-identified relationships that it generates at index time. And so it can very quickly say, oh, this file has these imports and these dependencies, and this file is imported in these files as well. And so that makes it very easy for the agent to quickly understand what else is relevant without having to ingest like every file in a directory, for example, or 10 files to find out which file is the most important, or which section of 1 or 2 files is the most important. So that's really valuable, and there's ways that we'll plan on leveraging it in the future beyond even just for code. We have an internal prototype, for example, that I think was in Bill's initial blog post for the Do Agent platform about a deep research agent that basically traverses your GitLab instance and finds, you give it an epic or an issue you want to look at, and then it will take in the related issues, epics, MRs, read all of those, and just continue kind of traversing that tree all the way, and then giving you a very nice, like, detailed report at the end.
Yeah, this is the one that we were demoing where it was like
Yeah.
an incident occurred, and I don't just want to know what happened. I want to know how this came to be. And like you said, it compiled this report and it told me like, here's the root cause, here's how you could have avoided that, but here's the exact line of code that's causing it.
Yep, exactly. And it's super fast. Even the GitLab monolith, which for folks who know is a giant repository, I think last time I talked to Angelo, who's one of the tech leads on the project, it indexes in like under 7 seconds or something. It's probably faster now. That was like a month ago. And that's really quick to be able to index a useful index for a repository that size. So I'll hand it off to Shekhar. I know Shekhar's probably got more interesting engineering level details for that type of stuff, but those are the high level use cases I think for now that we're kind of targeting.
Yeah, I think Ben covered quite a lot of it, but I think what I've learned from speaking to customers is what they're really excited about the knowledge graph is the fact that it indexes across repositories. And so now, so when the agent's querying, it doesn't just have access to the current repository, but it really has access to the full context of all the repositories you have on your machine currently, but soon, hopefully we'll have this on the service. It has all the repositories in the group or whatever. But basically, that is really exciting because now, let's say I've got some really interesting patterns that I've implemented in different repository. I can go import those patterns, and the agent's aware of those patterns, so then it can start using those. So if I've got enterprise standard authentication or authorization, or we use a certain best practice and how we template our Spring projects, or we use our own our own linting tool or whatever. And so now suddenly the agent gets aware of all that context, and it can pull in all that context because it is aware of the code. And I think that's what we eventually want to do, give the agent as much context so that we can then produce the best code, the best MRs, the best issues, or whatever else, right? And so that's really it. It provides the most interesting context to the agent as fast as possible as well. The speed of the agent is another thing that we want to maximize here, is because the agent can then query these things faster instead of the typical tools like grep ls, as Ben mentioned, are quite slow, right? Because you need to look through, and we've seen this especially in large repositories. Like the GitLab repository itself is a big monolith, right? So we've got lots and lots of files, and we use this for that because it's a lot quicker in finding things that it needs to search for, it needs to change, rather than doing a brute force search.
As you're talking about the performance and how it has to search through everything, we did get a question from the audience that I think is relevant here. How can dev teams natively introduce knowledge graph workflows into their dev practices? I'm thinking of even when new devs are onboarding and they're getting up to speed on legacy code bases.
I mean, I can answer. Like, I just did this myself actually on a project I was working on. I used the knowledge graph for my own purposes on a non-GitLab thing. It's super easy to install. This has got a great docs page that the team has put together. You can run it. It's a very simple installation script. It has an MCP server, MCP tools, which is also very easy to configure and set up. And like I said, it indexes super fast. You're basically up and running like immediately. I mean, it's such a short index time. There's basically, I mean, it's like a one-line shell script and you're good to go essentially. So as far as experimenting, you can definitely do that locally. And then one of the things that Angelo did as a POC, just kind of internally to see how well it would work, was we actually ran one of the, I forget which coding agent he did it on. I think Angelo's in the chat, so maybe he remembers, but it was either Cloud Code or Codex or, Open Code, one of the CLIs we were doing. But he just had it, run npm install or whatever on the knowledge graph locally for that agent itself. And so it just ran it without, it didn't need to be hosted on the platform or anything. It just got installed to the CLI agent and then was able to run the knowledge graph and index the repository after it ran a git pull. Like, very simple to get started, super easy. The team's done a great job of making it really portable and usable. So I think super easy to do. You should definitely check it out.
And it's really it's a huge use case here is new devs, honestly. Like the first thing I go when I go to a new repository is plug in knowledge graph and say, okay, can you tell me a little bit about this repository? Can you draw me a little mermaid diagram that describes what the main components are? And that's really nice because it just creates a nice little, I'm a visual person. And so just seeing a diagram out there of how this repository is structured really helps me understand what it is all about. And so it's very catered towards new devs, and the whole idea is, and the fact is that it's again visual, so you can actually see a visual representation of the full graph. And so you can see, I'm in this file currently, what are the other files that I may need to touch because I am modifying a function here. And so that's very useful to know.
I wish I could pull up that demo where it's like, I want to change this authorization function, and you look in the knowledge graph and it's connected to the user object. And I remember being like, oh, knowing that is super helpful, because once you click into the graph, that user object is like connected to everything, as it should be. But that moment in that demo really solidified for me like the value of the graph.
Yeah, and Angelo, one of the main developers on this project, actually commented in the chat, grep versus knowledge graph. So stay tuned. There's going to be a whole eval write-up from the team to show off these results. So we're looking forward to seeing that coming up shortly in the future. And also, thank you, Meg. That was a great question. We want more questions like that. So keep it up, audience, if you want to ask about anything GitLab Duo agent platform, throughout this particular session, just feel free to add it in the chat in LinkedIn. And now let's move on to model selection. So I know model selection is now in GA, and this provides control over which AI models you're going to use for your development workflows. So I think my first question is going to be for Shekhar on if you can walk us through the technical implementation and how does this model switching actually work under the hood? So is it going to allow us to use different models for different functions within GitLab? Or yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Yeah, certainly. So I'm very excited about model selection. It's such a boon for, especially for customers who are in like regulated industries where they need to, they can't just use the latest model. They need to go through this whole risk management, risk function process to actually figure out which models they can use, right? And so, some of our largest customers who are in these industries need the ability to decide which models they want the developers to use, and they want this on a feature by feature basis, right? Because different models may be appropriate for different features. So right now, you can select at an instance level, or I believe at a root group level as well. You are able to select what models you want per feature, and we've broken the features down. So you could select it for like code suggestions or different chat chat features like explore code versus write tests. I believe you can select different models, and so the idea is that we select we allow you to select between a bunch of GitLab managed models, so the Sonnet and Gemini models that we support. But then we also let you, if you're using self-hosted models, which you can host your own open source models on your on-premise environment, if you've got the hardware set up to do that. So we allow you to do that as well. So we allow you to host your own version of the AI gateway, the one we host on .com as well, and then you can actually use that with any sort of open source model. We have a number of open source models that we support, and so you can use one of those models when you are doing code suggestions or chat or whatever else. And I believe we're soon releasing it for the agent platform as well, support for model selection.
Awesome. So it pretty much so what advice would you give when using different models for different functions, right? Like I understand some models have to be approved, and there's certain companies that use only approved models, but then there are companies that can work with any model that they please, right? And then what would be some suggestions? Because some models will be better for maybe generating code, and maybe others are better for explaining things and kind of giving details on a particular process. Like how would you encourage developers to use these features when they're not limited by a particular framework within their organization? And that's question number one. And question number two, is this available both on .com and self-managed, or is it? Okay, yeah,
We'll come back to that. Shakar, we won't load you with 3 questions in a row. Let's talk about
Okay.
what Fern asked about model
The
strategy.
first question, yeah.
Yeah, so which model is more suitable? So again, that you're absolutely right. Different models are suitable for different tasks. Like, for code suggestions, typically you want a faster model which will give you instant code, because developers are not very patient usually, like myself. And so you want the suggestions to come up as quickly as possible. And so for code suggestions, typically you want to select quite a fast model that can give you the answer almost immediately. Whereas for chat, where you can wait, where it does stream the answer, which you can read through eventually, you could go with a slower but more powerful model, right? And so again, it depends. I don't have an answer for which model is better for which scenario, but again, this is where you can really evaluate different models and decide. And if you're lucky enough to be an enterprise which can host different models, allow you to use different models, I would suggest that you run your own evals to figure out which model works out best for you. Because they're different models. Some are great with, like, you provide the context, you provide a whole bunch of files. Some are great at function calling, and being able to call the right function. And so there are various criteria which are very enterprise specific.
Awesome. No, I think that's great feedback.
As we talk about sort of like pick your own models, I also want to lead us into like pick the agents that do certain work for you. So let's talk about agents for a bit. This question maybe for Ben, maybe for Shakar. I know that we've been releasing these agent flows, including things like, converting a CI file. One of the demos that we did last week was like converting a Jenkins file to a GitLab CI file. And I thought like there was a moment when the audience was like, oh, because it happened so quickly. And I'm really excited to see what sort of things people can build with these agents. But what are some things that you have been seeing and you're excited about?
I think I talked about a couple of them early on, some of the fundamental stuff. And I think one of the things that I personally like to see, and that we can add more of to the Do Agent platform as native agents, or that customers can build on their own, is a lot of, and related to the knowledge graph too, like context gathering agents are really important. They improve the outcomes of whatever your agent's trying to do quite a bit. And so as we think about agent orchestration and those types of things, you can have your sort of main agent that's guiding the task and spinning off sub-agents to go get various context things to help with a plan or to execute on a plan. That's something that like Claude Code does really well as well with like their own, it's got its own internal sub-agent stuff, but mostly they're designed for context gathering. But I think there's basically anything you want to prompt the agent can do, it can do well. And we've provided now in the Do Agent platform, I don't know, Shakar, it's like almost 100 tools, I think, right, for the platform level that at least are coming, if they're not already all available in the Do Agent platform, to access various parts of GitLab data, issues, epics, MRs, and outright tasks you can do, plus the MCP server. So there's a lot of flexibility, and then you'll be able to test those things out using agentic chat before you deploy them, so you have some ability to be able to verify that it's doing what you expect it to do and experiment with it a little bit as well. And we'll be doing more down that line as far as like letting you iterate and develop agents to make sure they're enterprise ready. But yeah, I think that's
Awesome.
where we're at.
Before we talk more about agents, I just want to remind the audience that if you drop your questions in on LinkedIn, X, or YouTube, wherever you're watching this live, we still have a few more minutes and we can pull your questions in. Otherwise, we'll continue to go with the questions that we have prepared, but we would love to take your questions. Fern, go ahead.
And then just to close it off, in case we don't get any questions, one of the things I'm most interested in is how do you balance the automated AI evaluation with human evaluation, right? Because you don't just want to accept everything that is being thrown at you. How do you have a human in the loop so that way we're actually validating these things and making sure that they're accurate and furthermore making the model more accurate through this? So yeah, what can you give me an example of that and how that's done currently?
Yeah, I can take that one. So this is a very interesting question, like especially for AI agents, because they are very like non-deterministic compared to like deterministic software development, where you know what you are building, so you can test against that. So the agents behave differently depending on different prompts. So what we are doing behind the scene is that for each prompt, we are having a data set that we are listing. So the challenge is like to have all the data sets behind the scene available, and then we run these different prompts to test against those expected results to see like where we are with the overall evaluation. So right now we have different agents and we are building custom agents, so we will have endless intellectual like capabilities to develop more and more. So the evaluation part is very interesting, and as we move along, the data would be important for us to really run those prompts and then see how good or bad each agent is.
And when you're evaluating how good or bad each agent is, like very high level, what are sort of the criteria that you look for?
Yeah, so definitely. So it is expectation, like when you are having let's say software development agent
Yeah.
that is expert in the software development, and when you're asking question, the depth of the answer would be related to that particular question. So knowledge graph, all those other things, and the tools, MCP tools, they come into the picture because how good they are connected together with each other to give you the output when you prompt defines the quality of the output. So once you are writing those data sets for each agent persona, you write those data sets depending on those personas, right? So how good that output would look like. So when you're asking a question to a software developer, his answer would be different to if you are asking to a QA person, right? So QA agent would be different than a software development agent, and we expect the same characteristic going into the agent.
And I imagine that gets really tricky when you're doing some of the multi-agent chaining prompts that Ben and Shakar were talking about, where you have the software agent writing something for you, the documentation agent writing the implementation plan for you. And so you kind of have to evaluate, what I'm hearing is each of them based on their expertise, if we can say expertise for AI agents.
Correct, spot on, yes.
Okay, very cool. Sort of similar to that, we do have another question from Colleen in the audience. Love to see it, Colleen. What's been the most surprising feedback that you've received from developers actually using these features? I feel like you sort of answered this earlier with the pirate agent. That's the most surprising.
And what? Yeah, and I'll add on top of that question: what is the weirdest thing you've seen done?
I don't know if we should
double
ask
down.
that on the live stream. But yeah, what's something interesting that you've heard from people who are starting to use these features, chain together multiple agents, and sort of building with the integrations that we've set up?
I would say everything is really surprising. AI is such a multiplier. It's so odd to see people use this in ways that you never thought before.
We're gonna
And
clip
so
that.
and what I've really seen is enterprises really embrace, what they have existing, building MCP on top of that, and then just using this for some amazing stuff. Like they build centralized documentation servers, they build access to their internal like Mongo databases and whatever else, so that they can, they have all that access when they're asking questions. So they can say, hey, can you tell me what changes I need to make to the schema, and they have access to that schema because it can then query Mongo or whatever else. And so the way enterprises are expanding the capability with MCP, with other open technologies, with open models, that's really exciting to me. That's what I find most surprising. Every time I have a look, it's people have found a new way to use these agents. The other day, I saw someone using this agent to actually fix multiple CI files in all like across thousands of projects and make a change to
Thousands.
them. Yeah, and I thought it was astounding, and they were actually figuring out, oh, this agent failed and this didn't do the right thing and whatever else. But it is, and we need to build some interesting tools around that. But it is super interesting to see the use cases that people come up with. Another very interesting use cases is mass migration of like the Jenkins files. Is like, hey, I've got to migrate from Jenkins to GitLab CI, and I've got all these projects and thousands of projects, and I want to migrate all of them together. So I think this whole idea of running bulk agents is really interesting, and the idea of connecting agents to the rest of the enterprise with MCP is super interesting. There's so much stuff that we can do around that.
I'm
I
very
think one
excited
of the
about your excitement on the topic, and I feel like we need to have you back for the full hour and doing some live coding, because there's more there that I'm sure that we want to dive into. Does anyone else have like an interesting idea that they've heard from the
yeah.
developers?
So I have seen like being in the TPM world, like I talk to very different people across the organization. I've seen like from the security, engineering, like they have a lot of like chain of tasks that they have to look into, and they have like these prompts that they actually run across different issues to create different types of vulnerabilities, and what kind of like testing they want to do. So it's very interesting to see like non-technical people also that are not really into the weeds of like software development can actually leverage a lot of the things, understanding the code in English. So I've seen across the company like different use cases, which is very interesting.
That is super awesome. We are at time for this segment of Q&A. I want to say thank you to our guests here, Ben, Shekar, and Zishan, and also Sarah, who had to leave early. It's been so great to sit with all of you and sort of hear the behind the scenes and hear the insights from building 18.4. And I think our audience, hopefully with future episodes, we can also have some of you back as we release more cool features to have our audience ask more questions. So this has been really great. Thank you for joining us.
And if you still have questions, audience, throughout the time, just feel free to drop them and we'll see what we can look through. If you have come up with a question that you thought of later on during the segment, feel free to ask it and we'll see if we can.
This recording later on.
Yeah, or that too.
Also, Angelo, knowledge graph expert, is in the chat on LinkedIn. So if you ask your knowledge graph questions now, you might get an answer immediately. Thank you so much, Ben, Shekar, and Zishan. Hope to see you again on the show.
Thanks, everyone. Absolutely. Take care.
Zishan, you wanted to stay?
I think Zishan wants to stay and hang out with us. And so we asked the community a month ago what we should build on this developer show. And for context, for those of us joining us for the first time, like we wanted this to be a technical show where we build things live with you and pair program and sort of build the things that you think are interesting. And you voted on Contributor Garden, which at the time we had pitched as this pixel 2D art world where the contributions that are happening to GitLab in real time are being built into like plants and flowers and trees. Now is the time, Fern, for us to figure out how we're going to build this and where we're going to build this and what it's going to look like.
Yeah, and I think the way that we're going to start this, since this is the first, we got the votes, now we got to define exactly what we want to build. So I think in this session, the way that it's going to work is we're going to think of what we want to build, start writing up the prompts for what we're going to build, and then have a README generated that then we can use to generate some scaffolding later on. So I think we want to define exactly what a community garden is, what's required by that. And we'll go through those steps, and then every episode we'll go through and iterate on that and add new features using the different parts of GitLab Duo agent platform, whether it be issue to MR, whether it be agentic chat, whether it be, different specialized agents. Will show different features throughout. But first, let's define what a community garden should be. And if you have any thoughts, feel free to add them throughout the chat to tell us what you would like to see in a community garden. But okay, thanks for sharing, Fatima.
Yeah, I'm gonna
So
start sharing my Visual Studio Code, but I will give the audience some context on what has happened here. And for surprise, I got a new laptop in the last 3 weeks as I
Oh,
was moving, and so nothing is installed at the moment. So I believe that my Visual Studio Code may not even have the GitLab workflow extension. So we are starting a little bit behind here. So maybe
well,
you
this
can
is
walk
good
me
because
through.
we want to show users like how this is capable, and we want everyone to get started from scratch on how someone would actually do this. So this is actually great news.
It looks like the extension is installed, but I will need to sign in and authenticate. So I'll do that while we're talking.
And this is the GitLab Duo or
Workflow
GitLab
extension.
workflow extension that you can download through the Visual Studio Code Marketplace. So you just go to extensions and then you type in GitLab, and it'll be the GitLab workflow extension that you can see.
Ta-da! Okay, so we added the account for Sugar Overflow, and we can now get started with code suggestions. I won't click learn more because presumably I should know how it works. How do I open the Duo? It should be here now, right? The Duo
It's
chat.
on the side. So you see on the side where there's like those three little icons. The last icon on the bottom is the agentic chat.
Ta-da!
So now we got to make the project, and we're going to make it in our developer. And let me link that to you, and I'm going to link it to the audience here in the chat,
Okay, sounds good.
where all of our developer show projects are being held. We have two projects there from former sessions, but if for the team that wants to see more sessions, you know what, I got to open up LinkedIn on a separate tab so I
Can
can.
you link that to me, Fern? I'm looking for because I need to create the top level
Yeah.
namespace, right?
So that's the top level namespace. I send it to you in our private chat that we have, but I'm gonna put it for the audience as well in the Q&A.
Okay, let me pull that up so that the audience knows what we're looking at. Also, for context, I just moved to London and I don't have an office yet, and I only have my laptop. And so I'm doing this live stream for the first time without a monitor, and it is tricky to navigate. I'm going to start screen sharing again with the GitLab page, and let's start at the top and create this new project, and then we'll pull it into our Duo namespace for the agent platform. Should I create a blank project, Fern?
Yeah, I would make a blank one.
All right, we're gonna
And
call it Contributors Garden. Oh, this is happening.
woo,
All right. It's going into the GitLab DA developers show namespace.
and I linked that in the chat so that way you can find it. You can this is all open source. Everyone can access it. We'll put it at MIT license. So
Yeah, what we would love with this project in particular, and it's hard to talk about it now because it's just getting started. But as we build this out, what we would love from the community and the people that are in the chat is sort of tell us what to build, tell us how to fix things, build things with us, open an issue and say like you need trees and and maybe we build a trees data type. I don't know what the project itself will look like, but I think it's exciting that we're sort of building this together, and it's me, Fern, Duo, and our audience building this together.
So
Okay,
I
this
just added the
open.
MIT license, so that's the first thing we start, so that way anyone can use this. So if you refresh it, you'll see the MIT license on there now.
All right, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull this repo down, and then we'll open it in the platform. Oh, I can share another screen? No, I have to like close the one I'm sharing. All right. Here
Yeah, and
is
then what we're gonna do
terminal.
is, yeah, while you get that figured out, we'll just keep talking through it. But what we're gonna do is essentially, we're gonna build the README from that static README that was generated by GitLab, and we're gonna build it with what we need, and we'll ask Duo Agentic Chat different things while we do that. So, and Fatima, don't show us your keys.
For a
Um,
second there, I was like, did I forget my SSH key after a week of being at a conference?
it happens. So I just got back from a conference too, so we're both kind of like, but you were more jet lagged than I am. I only did 2 hour jet
I
lag
got back from a conference and I moved to a new country.
all at the same time.
It has been all but a year in one day. All right, I'm gonna switch back over to VS Code. Here it is. Also, it's like almost 7 p.m. here. It's very strange to be coding at 6:41 p.m. Is that zoomed in enough, Fern? Should I zoom in a little bit more?
I
for
think
this?
you're good. I could see it.
Okay. All right, this is it. This is the project. And now that we're here in, we have the Duo Agent platform. You can see some of my recent chats. That's kind of embarrassing. I'm going to delete one. You can see I was trying to like understand if there was a Streamlit UI in a project and creating a snippet, but we won't dive too much into that. I think our first step should be like putting together requirements of what we want this to be. And if our audience is out there, like what should a contributor's garden project look like? I know that we briefly talked about it in our first sort of pitch, and it was supposed to be this like pixel art garden that pulls in GitLab merge request data, which I presume we can do with the GitLab API. I almost want to invite someone from Contributor Success for the next show to help us do that. But like, as merge requests are being opened, maybe plants are growing.
Yeah, I had to change my camera, overheated. But yeah, I think yeah. It's funny because we have these good cameras that are high tech, but they get
Yeah, the
so hot.
Sony ZV-E10 can sometimes not handle 3-hour live streams.
Yeah. So okay. So the first thing is we need to think about what exactly we're going to do. So, so the requirements are going to be what. So where do we want to look at the contribution metrics? Do we want to be able to link any GitLab project, to see how that project grows over time? So I guess it would be the first thing would be, um,
I would
allow
say
for.
let's integrate with the open core merge requests that come in through the community. I think that would scope it down pretty well.
Okay. Yeah, because we want to make it generic enough so that way anyone can use it on any of their projects, right? So that way they can kind of visually gauge, the contribution status via plants, like via like a actual like image of a plant growing. And what we can do is we can look at merge requests every time that they're merged. The plant grows. So
Yeah.
let's say we have 10 merge requests in the queue. Every time, let's say 5 are merged, then the plant grows to the halfway point. That could be a good start, and then we can link any project in there. It's kind of like how the knowledge graph shows a visual representation of all the functions and all the data within a project. We're kind of showing all the merge requests in a project visually through a plant.
Yeah. Or a garden. It doesn't have
Or
to be one specific plant. I was thinking more like what you're saying, like merge requests grow plants, maybe they're little plants, and then like comments on merge requests grow flowers or something like
and each plant is a user.
Ooh, oh yeah, that would be a lot of plants though.
Yeah. It'll be a lot of plants, but I mean, how big do we want this garden to be? We don't know. Maybe for smaller projects, maybe its intended use could be for smaller projects
Now
that
that we're
there's like a
seeing,
smaller
maybe we
base.
should start with just merge requests. Maybe every merge request is a tree.
Okay, yeah, let's start
So
simple.
a
And that's
3D
the way that.
pixel art garden where for every merge request through the GitLab API, we grow a tree. Does that?
we grow, a tree gets larger. Let's say that.
Not
tree-
one tree per merge request?
Right, like, or yeah, let's start simple. That's probably the simplest way. One tree per merge request. Then we make a forest. I think our contributor garden is going to be more of a
We'll
contributor
start with a
forest.
forest, and
Yeah,
then we'll turn it into a garden, maybe.
that sounds good. Yeah. So let's start with a forest. So every time that there's a merge request that's actually merged, it becomes a tree. But if it's not merged, it's just like a pile of dirt. So
Okay.
like we
And then
symbolize, yeah.
a pile of dirt. Something we learned from Ebru like 2 episodes ago, or was it last episode, was that like we should have phases to this prompt. And I don't think that what I have here right now, it would be very helpful for Duo to build for us. So maybe let's build the 2D pixel art dirt garden floor and get that working today. And then we can integrate the GitLab API next time, because I know looking at the clock, we do have like
Yeah.
15 minutes.
No, there were some good questions. We went over, I mean, but it was a great session. So I mean, we'll start coordinating these
So
things
let's go with
better. Yeah.
like prompt 1, and then prompt 2 might include integration with the GitLab API and putting trees on the map. But help me with prompt 1.
Okay.
The base of this, it's sort of like a visualization of a garden,
Yeah,
a
generate.
web app,
I would say number one could be generate a map.
a
I
map.
think it would generate a map. Um, uh, Pretty much. I think we want like a map where you can input like a certain number of trees based off of like a number. So I'm thinking
I
like
think we're
what.
thinking about this differently. Like you're thinking of a map, like a geographic map with trees on it. I was thinking pixel art. So like imagine a video game scenario screen where there's trees growing on the screen.
Yeah, so I guess like like a map in the sense of like a an array, right? That just a multi-dimensional array
Okay, so
that yeah,
that contains all of the merge requests that will convert into trees. So
right.
let's go even one macro level above and do generate a web application that displays a pixel garden.
Hmm.
You know what I'm thinking? Like what I want to start with the very base of the application, get
Got
that
it.
deploy that to GitLab pages, and then come back and on that garden we can feed it information.
Okay. No, I like that.
But
I
I
like
hear
that
what you're
idea.
saying. I think in our phases of prompts, we should actually generate an array that contains merge requests that can be built into trees on the pixel art garden. And then prompt 3 is actually using the actual data. And maybe there's more steps here, but I hear what you're saying is that we should test it out with the array as opposed to the actual data, because inserting the actual data may or may not work.
Right. Like it'll be like a 0 in that particular section. It's kind of like if we're building like a Minesweeper game in a sense, but like the values are not hidden. So in a sense, like there'll be those little dots like a Minesweeper, and then depending on how many merge requests there are, if it's a 1, it shows a tree. If it's a 0, there's nothing there. So I
Should
think
I give
that's
this a shot? I feel like it needs a little more context, but we could just put this in and see what happens.
yeah, let's try it. Let's see. I mean, we can always. I mean, and that's the thing with doing this type of agentic coding is it's going to generate something, and then you're always, as the user, should always validate and keep adding to it. Like you always see multiple prompts going after, oh, change it like this, change it like that. It's never completely it's never
Before I
complete.
send this, what
Mhm.
language?
Huh.
Or
What
do we
language?
wanna see what it suggests? I would prefer if it's in, like, JavaScript, but I'm also okay with seeing what it
I think it's
suggests.
going to be JavaScript if we don't say anything. So let's try it.
Alright, here we go. Okay, and now you can tell us, what you were talking about.
Oh,
Oop.
I don't even remember what I was talking about. Oh, yeah, like we work on it iteratively. Usually like, you fine tune, maybe you have one prompt, then you
Oh, no, it's
ask a
reading the
follow-up prompt.
README, and I have the other prompts in the read.
Copy it really quick.
Okay, wait, let me cut those out really quickly. I think what it's gonna do is try to build the whole thing.
The whole application. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. No, you're right.
because
Yeah.
it saw the other notes that we had in there. We'll see what happens, but like Ben was saying earlier, like AI and AI agents are so non-deterministic that you can't really predict. You can have the same prompt and get like 10 different answers. And so in this case, even if maybe we didn't show it the other two prompts, maybe it could have like hypothesized what that is. But it seems like it actually understands like pixel art, styling, interactive. I didn't want any interactive features, but I appreciate that you're going ahead of the prompt, Duo.
It seems like it's just doing an HTML and a
You wanna
CSS
look at the
file in this
HTML
case.
file? Let's take a look at the HTML file. So we've got contributor's garden, where every merge request grows into a beautiful tree. I need to turn on word wrap. Give me a second. There we go.
Yeah, and I want to see what this looks like when we
Plant
render it.
tree button, change season. I hadn't even thought. It makes sense that an AI would figure that out, though, that like changing seasons is a good characteristic of an art pixel garden.
Huh, I'm so interested in what this made now. Like if we open this HTML file up in our browser.
Oh, do you want me to try that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess why not,
I'll give
right?
it, let's give it a moment to finish first, and then we'll come back to sorry, I'm looking for the tab.
Yeah, but this is pretty cool. So this is kind of like we're trying to
Oh,
engineer this from the ground, and then we'll see what we do and how we use GitLab
Ooh.
Duo to help us do this. Oh, like JavaScript. There's some
All right, we've
JavaScript
got a
there.
garden.js, which my editor doesn't seem to like because I must have some settings on. So we've got a pixel garden class, got some art settings. Plant a random tree. These are the buttons that it put on the index page. So
So
you
it's
can like
raw JavaScript then, yeah.
yeah, change the season. It's not doing anything, it's just event listeners. Ooh, mock data. That's interesting.
And that's how we want to start with mock data. I mean,
Well,
when we
I was
build these
hoping we
trees.
would get the chance to iterate, but it seems like it kind of went ahead of us and built out. It was like, you want mock data? I'll give you mock data. And so it's creating this merge, like this list of merge requests that were created by Alice, Bob, Charlie, and Diana. I love that. And oops, sorry, I think I jumped into index.html. And then it's planting trees for that initial set of merge requests. It's also integrating with the GitLab
Oh,
API.
because it looked at all the stuff that we had there.
That's always something tricky, I think, with AI coding and using agents, is that like they're gonna do a lot more than you asked for, and sometimes that's really fun. Like it's drawing the background gradient here, which honestly, like, could I have written this code myself? Probably not. But it's interesting. It's still editing these files, so I'm actually gonna close the file because it's jumping around quite a bit. Let's see what it's been doing. I'm gonna scroll back up to when we first saw the create file, and then it started creating the deployment configuration. And future GitLab API. So it is treating it as in the future we'll integrate with the API. So maybe it's leaving like a stub for us to update.
Yeah, it just adds like
Never
the
mind.
functions, and then we have to do the API.
Never mind. It actually did
Oh.
decide to go ahead and also do that part so that nothing is left for another show. And then
Well, we gotta test it though. We gotta see what's up.
yeah, I'm getting a little bit nervous because it has done a lot in a single prompt.
Well, yeah,
Ooh.
we weren't expecting it to grab. We should have known that it was gonna grab that README as the context of what to generate. So that's why we needed to be more specific in just one prompt with an empty README. And we can even have Duo like generate the README for us based off of the requirements of what we
Which
need
it
to
is.
go forward.
It's doing now. It's generating the README. It's a beautiful 2D pixel art garden with dynamic tree growth, seasonal changes, fetches merge requests from your GitLab project, responsive design. I mean, I feel like I just did like 16 weeks of engineering work in 5 minutes, but let's see if it works.
All right, let's see how do we
Okay,
deploy this?
I'm gonna take a look. Let's read what it says, and then we'll take a look at the deployment instructions. I'm gonna close the diff. The diff is bothering me a little bit because I can't see it. Okay, so it says these are all the things. It fetches merge request, has some fallback mock data, which is what we were looking at earlier. Here's some of the features. This is a lot of features for what I consider an MVP, but I'll give it that. Deployment, no build process. Oh, that's what you were saying earlier. Like it looks like it's just doing HTML so that it can be static. That's
Yeah,
kind
and
of
then yeah, a lot of times what I've seen is that it'll use some engine, and then that engine is what builds it. So that way you can host it on static websites. So that way it's less hosting fees if it's not like a dynamic website grabbing data. But this is gonna it can work that way. Actually, it can be a static site because it can use the GitLab pipelines to then grab all the merge requests and API calls, and we can have that on a cron job, and that can then build the static site, which then we push. So we can actually save a lot of money in building this, making it, done every, on a cron job. So we're getting new ideas on how we can build this. But yeah, it could be done on a cron job. And we look at the contributor, every night at 5 p.m. when developers are supposed to stop coding,
yeah.
which doesn't happen. But, that's when it'll generate the graph of how many trees were planted at a certain time.
Okay, I'm gonna follow the instructions that it's saying to push this to main. So I'll commit everything. I'll say first push with Duo Agent Platform, building our MVP.
I'll take a look at what
I'll
exactly.
push that, enter my passphrase, and I push that to the main branch. And then here we'll take a look at the pipeline. I don't know. I'm someone who I'm not a purist by any means when it comes to using AI. Like I love using AI and I think it's really fun. I think it does a lot for you. I'm gonna switch my screen share, but I am a little skeptical that much can be built all at once. So let's take a look at the actual diff.
Well, that's why we always need a human in the loop to validate these things, and that's why we see there's a lot more senior roles that are available because we need someone to be able to validate that the stuff that you're coding is actually accurate. So there always needs to be a human in the loop and a human oversight.
Yeah, that I totally get that. Like you need to be able to review this code and verify that, the code itself makes sense. This is where it was saying update the config.js for your specific GitLab instance. This is really cute. It's abstracted out the color so you can change them here. And types of trees.
Make a maple tree.
That's really maple trees are features, Fern, and
So the
documentation merge requests are birch trees. Okay.
So I look at the build succeeded and the pages
Did
it was
it?
deployed. Yeah. I
All
mean, I don't
right.
know what it did. Let's look at the .gitlab CI-YAML.
How do I get to? You want to look at the CI-YAML?
Yeah,
Here's
yeah.
the CI-YAML. It's deploying to GitLab pages, so it's
Okay.
probably in the build. How do I get to the pages?
So it looks like it's just copying over. So if you look at what it's doing, it's just copying over the files that it already has that it generated.
Yeah.
And it's just deploying to GitLab pages. It's just copying them, but it didn't actually add the GitLab pages syntax there that we need for it to load.
Where did it deploy?
To a public artifact folder. I think it needs some extra syntax in order for it to work. But
Here, I'll follow
like
into.
yeah, so the way that we can see it is probably going to
Can I
the
look at the
job
artifact?
artifacts.
Yeah.
Going to public and then clicking on the index.html. And maybe I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, so let me link that to you.
Do you want
the
to
private-
screen share if we're
I can
doing?
screen share, yeah.
Yeah.
Screen share. Window, let me just.
Sorry, I went all the way up in the camera there. I'm not
So-
used to working on a one screen. Oh, it's not cute at all. I saw it.
Yeah, so you see this. So let me just show you how I
it's
got there.
hidden. Yeah, show me how you got there and zoom in
So-
just a little bit, please.
So here's the contributor garden, and then what this does is pretty much it's just putting in the artifacts folder in the public folder.
Oh, so
It's
instead of
making
that, it should say contributors.garden. Something it should have had a URL that it was going to.
right, like this right here should, instead of it's pages, but there's certain syntax that you can use here to actually deploy to GitLab pages where you would set exactly what it needs to look like, but it's doing the right thing. It's putting in the public artifact path, and then from there, and it's copying over all the files. So ideally, what would happen is in the build stage, it would grab this data and then it would generate these files based off that data. And
Yeah.
then when we do the pages, then it would use a different image to then build that into GitLab pages, and it would have a URL that it builds to. So, like, for example, if I typed in GitLab pages setup, right? You can go over and then you can see, like, in the GitLab job, this is what it needs to do. It needs to have pages set to true to specify that it's a pages job. And
Yeah.
then that, I think, will automatically load the variables and load the GitLab environment. So that's the only thing that was missing there.
Okay.
And I don't
We
think we're
can
going to have
still
time.
take a look at the artifact, right? Manual. Okay,
Exactly.
so why don't we show them the artifact? And because we're at time for this stream, we'll end there. If you don't mind us showing us the artifact that you got to. It doesn't look like it's planting any trees, but it's certainly a pixel art web application.
Well, yeah, and it's not doing anything because it's trying to grab stuff from the API.
Which we
And
didn't
there's
set up, which is mocked up.
exactly. But you can see it's a pretty cool start. I mean, I couldn't come up with something like this. It looks like a cool little garden.
It looks like a pixel art game. I really like that. I'm actually looking at if you want to open up the console errors for the audience just to confirm, and it looks like because we haven't connected the API, there's nothing in the garden, but it is super cool to see that this was put together so fast. And like connecting the GitLab API, I think is not a very large task. So we can definitely tackle that in one of the next shows.
Yeah, so we're seeing issues here with like the sign in. We're seeing that the API is not defined.
And I think that's primarily why there's no because it needs the API to be defined in order to pull the types of trees that it's looking for. I did think maybe the plant new tree button would work. That's something that I thought maybe it would just let us plant a random tree. But looking at the code, like there's an event listener in garden.js
Yeah.
planting a new tree, but it's not creating a new merge request in the data set. So that totally makes sense. Cool.
Yeah. So
That was really fun.
yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Fern, for finding that artifact. I was getting a little nervous there because I was hoping that it would be like your GitLab pages has been deployed to this link. And I think you're right. It was missing a little bit of the setup there, which is great because those are the kinds of things, like you said, we need to catch with the human in the loop.
Yeah, and then next time we go over this, I mean, this is a good starting point, and then we can look at how we actually integrate that API to then build it, and then we can start fine tuning it to be one tree per merge request and kind of like that. But
Yeah.
I think we fix this, and then we go from there. I mean, these things are,
And I would love to hear from our audience. Like, I know that that's a very basic looking application, but we don't actually know what the contributor's garden should be. And so maybe we'll have the social team sort of post out like, what do you think this thing is from like a software development sort of perspective? And that might help us sort of narrow the scope a little bit. I think we came into this with a really broad scope and should have maybe thought a little bit more about what the requirements are. But that was really fun to just kind of ask it to build this thing that I'm not quite sure what is.
Oh, we still don't know what it is. We just like contributor garden. This is what it is, but we're still defining that. So it'll be fun to continue iterating on this, throughout
Yeah.
the different shows. But this
Yeah,
is a
leave
good
us
little exercise. Yeah.
comments, or you have a link to the project too. So if you want to open issues, making suggestions, that would be fun too. I think the AI did quite a lot more than I expected with the maple and the birch. I was hoping like the community could be like, put in some maple trees, but we would love to find ways for you to help us build this out as we go. And honestly, like I have never live coded something on an actual live stream, so that's pretty radical.
Yeah, it was fun. That's really cool.
All
And we
right.
got something working. So.
We did. And we'll continue to keep working on that, me, Fern, Duo, and our audience. So that's a wrap on our episode 4 of the Developer Show. I can't believe it's only been 4 episodes. It definitely feels like it's been
like
a lot
10,
longer.
20.
It's getting pretty dark out here as well in London.
Mm.
Going off script for a little bit, but I'm gonna go have dinner. But I want to say a special thank you to our production team and to all of Fern's production team, which are his dogs.
Oh yeah, they're here sleeping with me.
Jill and Olivia, thank you for working behind the scenes to making these possible. And thank you to our guests that we had on earlier in the show for all of those great Q&As. We're hoping to do more of those with every release, just bringing in people to chat with you all. I think we have something exciting planned for next month, but until then, thanks, Fern, for being with me for this adventure.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. And we look forward to more of this and more towards the growth of dual agent platforms. There's a lot of cool things in the works. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. We'll see you next month.